Hey, I just want to talk about Scott Morrison, the Australian PM. He's come out on Channel 10 and done an interview, and this was it was I guess a regular interview, but it was in response to what was said on the project by Waleed Ali and all of his other cronies, basically calling the comments that the Prime Minister made racism and all this sort of stuff. It's the usual crap. And what Morrison actually said was, he said that as far as religions go, Islamic extremism is by far the biggest problem of any religion. And I mean, if people, there can't be any sort of mistake. There's no mistakes that can be made here. I mean, we know right across the planet, Islamic extremism is a huge issue. It's a massive problem, and and I just loved his response. I know this guy's probably trying to score some political points, but like I said in my previous video, the fact that we're coming into an election time, there's a lot of pressure on the Liberal government. There's a lot of truths that are going to be told right now, which is very, very healthy for society. And his response was the same old tired excuses of mental illness, the same old tired excuses of racism, are drawn out so they don't address the elephant that's in the room. And that's exactly what it is. It's an elephant in the room. And there's been a letter handwritten by the family of the terrorists, and they've sent that off, and you know, of course it's gone straight to the left-wing media. And in the letter it's talked about how he was crying out for help and he had a mental illness and all this sort of stuff. And honestly, these people should probably be the first people getting deported out of the country. If I was a guy like that scummy coward who attacked people over there in Melbourne, it would become commonplace now to go and see a psychiatrist before you go and commit one of these atrocities, and then you've got a paper trail to say, well, look, I had a mental illness, and you're protecting Islam. And really, Waleed Ali, the project and people like that have become terrorist apologists. These people who defend Islam with calls of racism and mental illness, they are terrorist apologists. They are people who are actually going to cause more deaths. They're going to cause more of these attacks. They're going to cause people who are a part of these conspiracies or a part of these cells not to be investigated. And we have not heard a thing about the Northern Suburbs Mosque where this guy reigned from. And honestly, we should be looking into, or the government, and I hope they are, should be looking into that mosque. That should be the very first place they should be going. They talk about IS radicalisation over the internet, but this is happening in communities. And Imam Tawhidi, as you know, is a friend of mine, and I talk to him every now and then. And he says that this stuff is rife. This stuff is rife in the communities. There are groups of radicalised youths in Australia teaching other people to become radicalised. This is not some boogeyman in a far-off country. This is not Islamic State. The Islamic State. If there was a certain a town that had to be taken by Islamic State for it to claim to be the true caliphate. And that was really the driving force behind IS recruiting and radicalising people around the world, because it's called, you'll have to correct me here, somebody will correct me, Tabik, or it's something very similar to that. It's a town which is basically written into the apocalyptic writing of Islam, and if they have this certain area, they can claim to be the true caliphate. Now, that's been taken back off IS. IS has lost a lot of support because of that, because they've lost this particular area. And this idea that it's IS recruiting all these people, it's a load of crap. It really is a load of crap, because IS have lost their biggest draw card. People know that they're not the true caliphate. And I have seen some comments coming up across my feed here. Yeah, and I do believe this. We're looking at end times. I do believe that biblical prophecy is probably being played out here. And I am a Christian, and I'm not ashamed to tell anyone that. But I just think it's great that we're having a healthy conversation in this country. I have to be very careful about what I say online, but my own family have been threatened by Islamists. My own family have had to go to church services just recently. My little kids went to a church service, and there were people with AK-47s standing out the front. It was just so they could go to a church. I mean, that's how serious this stuff is. And here in Australia, we live in this sheltered little world. We've got all these left-wing lunatics making excuses. And, if people think, oh, it hasn't touched our lives here, so why worry about it? For me personally, I've got my own family having their lives threatened. I've got my own family. When they want to go and just go to a Sunday service, they've got people standing outside with AK-47s. I've got friends who text me during the bombings of a number of churches, and they were in a church not too far from where other churches were being blown to pieces. Do you know what I mean? That's the world I frickin' live in. That's what I'm putting up with. And then I've got these people on TV making excuses, talking about mental illness, talking about racism, when people I know are, friends of mine, having their lives put at risk. And we have to deal with this. This is an elephant in the room. And in my opinion, it's the whole ideology of Islam. I've made my position very, very clear in some of my other videos. You can go to Where I Stand. The Where I Stand video, Islam is it's a satanic ideology. It really is. There's just no other way to describe it. Muhammad, through abrogation, all the later violent teachings he wrote, they supersede the peaceful ones that he wrote when he didn't have power. It's an ideology of conquest. So the ideology and basically everything that's written in the later parts of the Quran is for political conquest. It's for taking over countries. And one of the big differences between Islam and the Old Testament, you'll see a lot of arguments about the Old Testament, is in the Old Testament, yes, there were the death penalty and there were a few other things, admittedly, but that's been fulfilled. It's finished. And also in the Old Testament, they had a cut-off point for conquest. So they went into the Holy Land, the land of promise, and then they ceased from their conquest. There's no end in Islam. Islam is an open conquest. There's nothing that has ceased in Islam. There's nothing that has been fulfilled in Islam. They still operate exactly as it was the Old Testament era, and they have an open-ended conquest. There is nothing in the Quran that has told them to cease from conquest, and that's just the reality. And we're seeing fanatics who take that literally and are playing that out. I know there are Muslims who are peaceful. I know there are Muslims who don't take the Quran or the Hadiths or the Bukhari literally. I know some. I tried to take a group of Muslims, believe it or not, to a candles by candlelight night and they saw the beauty of it. There was family, there was joy, there was peace, and there was love. That's what they saw, and that's the exact opposite of what Islam presents. And I think, you know, it's honestly, I'm glad to see such a healthy conversation happening in the country. I hope it continues, and I hope that this elephant in the room is going to be dealt with. And I think we need to really start by deporting any conspirators, any people that any people that know about you know, what these offenders are up to, investigating the mosques, investigating the imams. And it's been said in a previous video that there's you know, it's been a practice for a very, very long time. Sunni Islam spread throughout Australia by funding through Saudi Arabia. It's just been going on for years. That's got to stop. We need to see where this money is coming from and what it's been used for, and have some guts to, you know, to close these places down. Hezbollah Tahrir, for example, Hezbollah Tahrir, which operates in Sydney, is illegal. It's been outlawed in Indonesia, which is a Muslim country. Hezbollah Tahrir is operating freely in Sydney and is outlawed in an Islamic country in Indonesia. That's how stupid our government is. And I mean, one of the very first things they can do is shut that lot down, because I can guarantee a lot of radicalisation is coming through that group. If you've got Islamic countries shutting down Hezbollah Tahrir and they're not doing it in Australia, it says something, doesn't it? Anyway, just thought I'd give you an update. I don't have time to make videos these days, so I've just decided to just get on here and do some live stuff when I'm sitting around, or I've got something to say. I'm just going to do these live videos. Sorry, it's not much to look at, but that's just how it is. This is Omega. I'm signing out, and I'll be back soon with another video. Cheers.